We hear statistics that 90% of US corporations have been compromised, that 41% of attack traffic comes from China, and that biotech companies have been compromised for everything from cancer research to drug recipes. Do American companies have a real concern about corporate espionage and treat it with the respect that it's properly due?
Well, actually, we are very candid with you. I actually predicted that about a decade ago that if we, the entire world of the business world, do not pay attention to cybersecurity problem that exists across the entire globe, we're going to end up with the problem what I call the biblical proportion. And some of the problems that right now that are being advertised in terms of security hacking is just the tip of the iceberg. We are about to see some massive problem that will ultimately eliminate the entire structure of the communications across the entire planet. And that is where cybersecurity is going to be the topic of the interest for any corporation that they have to deal with in order to prevent themselves against the business continuity that they need to have in order to generate the necessary financials and the customer experience and network transformation that they need across the business.
There's a next generation security company called Cyberflow Analytics.
That's correct, and I think the main reason behind that was because I really believe that these point-based solutions, given my prior experience of dealing with thousands of products with thousands of images of different software, that problem is just pretty much not scalable. So, and if you think about the entire mobile infrastructure in which you have over 50 billion devices that are expected to connect to the internet within the next probably 6 to 8 years or so, you end up with a problem that you really need to deal with a big data and analytics. Most of the people dealing with just basically with either the big data or analytics. The beauty of a Cyberflow analytic is about you dealing and combining the nature of the big data and analytics, and you use state-of-art a statistical and mathematical algorithm to be able to solve this problem, very much similar to doing a forensic analysis to be able to solve all the security problem once and for all.
So I've heard you also say that you believe the current security solutions are being solved with mathematics and analytics. Is Cyberflow an extension of that?
Well, Cyberflow is actually a little bit more advanced than what the current technologies that are being used right now. Most of the technologies that are being used and they're being solved using the mathematical algorithm is just after the fact, which means I've already been hacked. The beauty of Cyberflow Analytic is that it does the entire process end-to-end pretty much in real time. And that's the major differentiating factor that we have over any other point-based solutions.
So what's your vision for the company then?
The vision is basically become pretty much the Google of cybersecurity space in 21st century. We want to be the only company on the face of the planet that people come into, whether they're small and medium-sized businesses, whether they're Fortune 1000 or 5,000 companies, trying to use this technology to prevent them from having anybody, any hacking technology or any hacking person across the globe to be able to steal the intellectual property or be able to steal information that will ultimately they can sell into the black market to somebody else. So in essence, trying to prevent them from protecting the loss of that intellectual properties becomes one of the biggest challenges that the CSISOs have right now across the entire globe. And that is where the Cyberflow Analytics comes into play to solve that problem for them once and for all.
We hear that statistics like 90% of companies have been compromised. Why do you think traditional security solutions are failing?
The reason they're failing is because they only look at the technologies that are solving the old hacking problems. As the hacking becomes much more sophisticated and much more advanced, we need much more advanced-based technologies.
So we've heard recently about biotech companies where their cancer research is compromised and ended up in Asia. We hear about drug recipes being compromised and having to be recertified with the FDA. Do you think that mathematics is the way to solve those problems?
I believe that's the only way that this problem can be solved, because you have to solve the AAA functions, for example, the authentication, the encryptions problem, you have the authorization problems that you will end up having. This problem is just not only not scalable, it is not cost effective. So you end up putting the solutions out there that will ultimately cost you more money with little or no benefit across the entire corporation.
So what do you mean then by combining data analytics with anomaly detection? You've used the term anomalytics, I believe, to describe this?
Yes, we have, because most of the company are pretty much trying to find a needle in the haystack. The only way to find a needle in the haystack is you have to deal with the big data, because the size of data is growing so rapidly across the entire universe because of the IP and the nature of IP infrastructure. And the analytics, which pretty much is a software algorithm that based on mathematical and advanced statistical algorithm. What we're trying to do, we're trying to use these two terminologies in order to prevent against the new forms of attacks that are happening, including advanced persistent threats, which takes a little bit longer to detect, or any type of a malware problem that will ultimately end up finding its way around stealing that corporate information, but slowly and gradually. And that is the problem that where Cyberflow Analytics is trying to solve.
You've been talking about mobile and bring your own device. Can you explain to us about some of the problems that this will have for networks?
Well, most of the problems that are happening right now across the corporate IT infrastructure is most of the CISO are worried about bring your own device. Because if you have a device that are pretty much infected and you bring that into a corporate environment, and from that infected device you get access to your pretty much the databases and your corporate infrastructure, you're pretty much going to be creating this virus structure across your environment. And that is where most of the CISOs are worried about it, because there's no basic solutions available that solve this problem for them. And the beauty of this solution that we have in Cyberflow Analytics is that we're using this advanced mathematical and advanced statistical algorithm to be able to prevent them from getting access to corporate infrastructure that will ultimately steal intellectual property across the business.
So that's related to the erosion of the edge that you've often spoke about. Do you believe that the perimeter-based security solutions are important but are not really that important? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, in a way it's important, to be very honest with you. I think if you think about the nature of the transformation that's been going on, a lot of people still in this industry talks about the edge of the network versus the core of the network. And my thought process is that the way that the business has been shifting and the corporation has been shifting, that one person's edge is another person's core. We always used to think about having a mobile device being at the edge of the network. Not that same mobile device is already connected into the network. So the differentiation is a little bit murky. So you really have to think about this in a holistic way and making sure that one person's edge could potentially end up to be another person's core. In order to solve this, you have to think about this in much more holistically, which means not only you have an edge-based solutions, but you also have a network-based solution, but they're integrated in a way to solve the loss of intellectual property and pretty much the the brand issue that exists across the business.
You spoke in your book years ago that security would become a boardroom issue. Would you like to speak about that? I believe you had some predictions there.
Well, I've been focusing too much around building what I call the 5 nines of reliability, which in essence about less than 5 minutes of downtime. That probably was a good model, I would say, in the circuit switch world, but in today's world, no one can live out with 5 minutes of outage. They're just not acceptable. Even 1 second of outage is basically a big issue. Now they're not focused around the cybersecurity because it's in the form of a business continuity. And if the business does not have the continuity on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a second by second basis, this becomes a much bigger issue. That's why it's always a board issue in every discussion you have.
So you still hear from CISOs globally, even from large financial organizations that are desperate to solve this problem?
Yes, most of the people that are actually getting contact with us right now, they're really worried about this, for example, bring your own device, because there is no solution today that solves that problem. Most of the customers that are actually coming to us and trying to use our solution, they're worried about the point-based solution because it's a non-scalable problem.
And finally, you located your company in San Diego. Why San Diego?
If you think about the contractors that are available here in San Diego, great employee base that you have here, you have U.S. Navy here, you have Air Force here, you have so many other environment of companies that are focusing on cybersecurity space in this particular part of the country that we're trying to make this one in the cybersecurity hub of the entire planet. And that's why I was so much keen on developing and building this technology here in San Diego than any other city across the globe.
Dr. Eslambolchi, thank you very much.
Sincere privilege.